What's good, y'all? Welcome back to Float the Backstretch, where we'll be talking all things track and field. I will be your host, Freddie Critteden. Today, Jared Eden won't be with us, but we will still attempt to put a magnifying glass over our sport, track and field. We look to provide news and current events, perpetuate conversation in and around the sport, to highlight and advocate for athletes in our sport. But we're also here to talk, break down hot takes, debate the debatable while making it fun and positive for everybody. So we are here today. We got a special guest, very own Tim O'Neill, my coach, my good friend, been friends for a long time, 4 years. He's been coaching me for 4 years here in Phoenix, Arizona. And I invited him on to talk about the 110 meter hurdles from World Championships. So that's just a whole big thing that we need to unpack. I particularly brought him on because I know he's worked closely with Devon Allen, who is a good friend of mine. He's been training Devon Allen since high school, and he's got a real close, I would say he's got a real long history of like watching his starts and like seeing him run and everything. So he has a very unique perspective on him as an athlete, and I think he can provide some valuable insight that a lot of people haven't heard, I haven't seen, you know. So we're just gonna start off with Tim. You can tell us a little bit about yourself, and we can go from there.
Well, thanks for having me. First of all, I appreciate this. This is going to be fun. Looking forward to it. Yeah, as you mentioned, I was Devon's coach in high school, coached several high school athletes, kind of got into the hurdles by default. I was a decathlete growing up, got out of track and field, got convinced to come in and help out of high school. We weren't very good. Wanted to find a way to be better, and hurdles just seemed to be a good event to kind of work on and develop. We had some pretty good success over the years, and Devon was one of those athletes. When Devon left college, he asked if I would coach him as a pro. Jonathan Cabral joined the group. We had some really good results, and then guys like you, David King, Nick Andrews, Jared Eaton, and so on have reached out and also joined our group because of some of the results that we've had. And yeah, we've been really fortunate. So it's been a lot of fun. Super happy.
It definitely has been a lot of fun, and just going through years and like meeting different people, having different athletes join our group and be a part of our family is something that I value for sure, something that I cling to. And I look forward to many more moments and memories that we can make just like this moving forward.
Isn't it crazy how special it's been, the group? Like,
yeah.
Totally off tangent, not what you're going to talk about today.
Yeah.
But holy smokes, what a crazy environment we've created. People just don't understand. It's amazing.
Yeah, and still looking to expand.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Really, really blessed. So.
Yeah, so let's just dive right into it. The 110 meter, when everything started hitting the fan, I was watching live on NBC yesterday, and 110 hurdle starts, and lane, I believe it was lane 5. Lane 5 was empty. Hansel Parchment had pulled out because of a hamstring injury in the warm-up, literally on the track getting ready to go. He did a warm-up and pulled up. I've never seen that. Have you ever seen something like that, Tim? I really haven't.
No, not in the warm-up. I can't recall a single time that's happened. Pretty surprised, to be honest.
Yeah, especially like going out to the track and getting ready to run. It's like, okay, you're ready. You've done the full warm-up. You literally just got to chill and get ready to race. But for that to happen then, it's just like, okay, what in the world?
Yeah, it's pretty weird. Maybe he was feeling something in the warm-up. Maybe he was feeling something in the rounds. It's hard to say. I didn't notice any KT tape or anything wrapped or anything like that. Did you?
No, I didn't see anything either. There was kind of a clip that they showed of him, of them stretching his leg a little bit on the side of the track, looking like they were maybe trying to get him ready to go back, but much to no avail. He wasn't able to jump in there. But it would have been great to see him jump in that race with Grant and Devon.
And Trey.
Trey too. Can't forget Trey. But because of that, he had to back out. And that was the first crazy thing that happened. After that, immediately was the crazy thing that happened after was Devon Allen false started by 99 hundredths of a second.
Yeah, 5 1,000ths under the allowable.
So the allowable has been set at 100 meters, I always say meters per second, 100 milliseconds.
Correct.
That's 0.11 of a second. And I guess the reactions are set to the blocks, right? The starting blocks.
Timing sensors in the blocks, yeah.
Yeah, and any shift in movement that the sensors on the blocks feel, if it's 100 milliseconds before the gun, it's valid. If it's anything under that, then it's considered a false start.
Correct.
And that's where that's what's crazy. So leading up to this, I actually did some research and I looked up to see how many athletes had actually run 0.100 or 0.10 leading up to this race. There was a handful of athletes that did this. Let me look it up real quick. And I just sent this to you, Tim, so you can kind of observe it too. Christian Coleman ran 0.104. That's not like blazing, but it's a thing. Katarina Johnson-Thompson ran 0.101 in the decathlon. Wow. Yeah. Jared Elcock ran 0.104. Udodi from Nigeria ran 0.104. Julian Alfred and Tania Gathers, they were the ones that suffered from actual false starts, and I think those were a little bit more believable, as the average in those races for female 100 sprinters was around 0.12 or something like that. They both ran substantially under the limit, which is 0.95 for Julian Alfred and 0.93 for Tania Gathers. But Devon ran 0.099 in the final. 0.0999. Yeah. In the final. I think the craziest part about that, I looked it up in the semifinal. Devon Allen reacted to the gun at 0.101.
Yes.
A handful of hours before his final. So if you're an athlete, you know that the semifinal is where you go, you just get the nerves out, you just execute a race so that the final can be where you hit it. You warmed up, you got all the nerves out, you ran the semi or whatever, and the final is where you really, really hit it. So for him to run 0.101 in the semifinal, it's not completely out of reach from my perspective as an athlete, right, to be even better than you were in the semi and the final, you know? Right. So just to put that in perspective, it's just kind of crazy to see that he ran 0.101 in the semifinal, and then he ran the 0.0999 in the final. So just hearing all of that information, there's a handful of athletes, not just in one event, not just in the 100. And it's actually surprising. I'm surprised I didn't see as many 100-meter sprinters running closer to 0.100. There was a couple of them. Christian Coleman ran a couple of 0.10 like lows, but the rest of them, they weren't really as close to it as you would think. But Katarina Johnson-Thompson, she is a decathlete from Great Britain. I believe she's from Great Britain.
From Great Britain, yep. Yeah,
Great Britain. Jared Elcock, Udodi from Nigeria, they're all sprinters. But it just seems like there's more to meet the eye. And this is only the day 3 of World Championships. There's a whole nother week of events that we can actually watch and monitor how many athletes can get close to that 0.100 threshold. But it's just interesting to see that that's the threshold, and we can talk a little bit more about why that's interesting. But what do you think about like hearing those numbers, Tim, and those reactions and stuff?
Well, I'm not surprised we have a small number of people with, right on the borderline of reaction time. I think in general, certainly through the rounds, people are a little bit more conservative. We're always kind of sitting, waiting for the gun. Like the last thing we want to do is not get into the finals because we were silly on the gun. So I could see being more conservative through the rounds and things like that. Certainly at the final, you're locked in a little bit more. You're really focusing on the gun, trying to get a reaction. The heptathletes, they get 2 false starts. Could they try and anticipate? Yeah, maybe. Yeah. But like you and I were talking about earlier, for me, the thing that stands out the most is that, for years, I've watched Devon Allen, and perfect example is what he ran in semis. For years, I've watched him run right at 1.0. Well, if we've set that line in the sand at 0.10, and people were capable of doing it faster, or if they're capable of doing it right on the number, it seems like a really tight line that we have to walk between what you're capable of doing and what's allowed. Like, I don't think we're finely tuned enough as humans to be able to water it down 1/100th.
Yeah.
Well, like if you're capable of a 99 and you're only allowed a 0.1, how do you govern yourself that
Right.
extra? Like, he's trying to do the same thing everyone else is trying to do. He's trying to react at the gun.
Right.
And I firmly believe that he can react faster than most people to the gun. I mean, you and I've been around him for years. We've watched him for years. I've seen just tons of race results, tons of reaction times with him, and he's routinely at that 0.101, 0.10. That's what he does. He's a really talented kid.
And knowing him personally, that's something he takes pride in. You know,
He does.
He used to joke in practice when he was with us. He's like, "When do you react to the gun?" I think he said, if you're gonna race somebody, when do you react? Do you react at go? Will you react at? He's like, no, you react at g. Like, you react as soon as you hear the first sound. Most people say, oh, you react when they say go. No, you react as soon as you hear g. Like, yes, exactly. And that's something that he's just trained himself to practice, and he takes pride in that. And I can see him being one of the best starters that we've seen. And unfortunately, because the standard and the limit of 0.100 is where it is now, that's something he has to suffer from, you know?
Yeah.
And
it's super unfortunate, but it unpacks, like you mentioned earlier, several other questions, right? One, is that 0.10 the right number? The study alludes to that humans are able to respond faster than that. If that's the case, then why do we have that number?
Right.
I do agree we need a number. And then two, if let's just say for argument's sake that that's the case, we've got a whatever the number is. Should that athlete be allowed to run under protest so that we can take time to address it after the race? Right. Is he getting a fair and just process by not being allowed to race on a split decision? Does he have time to process that information? Does he have time to adequately and fairly look at all the information that's ahead of him to determine if he's really in violation, or does it need to be examined further, and can that be done in a matter of minutes before the race? Right. That seems unfair. It doesn't seem like there's due process in that.
Right. And that's what I was going to get at. That's one thing that really lit my passion in the story. Watching Devon go over and protest, it was like, oh, I know I didn't false start. I want to protest it. And if you look at World Athletics technical guidelines and rulings, they refer to officials as technical delegates. So Devon walked over to the technical delegate. I want to protest that false start. The delegate then has the option to affirm the protest or decline the protest. And then from there, the athlete has the ability to appeal that decline if it's declined, or he can run under protest if it's affirmed or confirmed. And then after the appeal, it goes to a jury of appeal. So it's 3, 5, or 7. I don't know why they said 3 different numbers. They said 3, 5, or 7 delegates from whatever pool of representatives they have. Mm-hmm. They can then go in and look at the video footage, like decide amongst themselves, and then they can say, oh, this athlete has the right or can run. They give him the right to run, or they take it away, Yeah. And just watching that interaction on TV, I don't know how it happened. I don't know what happened. I don't know how far they allowed it to go before they finally were just like, Devon, you need to get off the track. You're making a meet run long. And knowing Devon, he's also like, I'm not gonna hold up the meet if I don't want to cause a scene. These other guys came here to compete. They didn't false start. I don't want to.
Yeah, and I think he handled himself remarkably well.
Right, 100%.
but clearly he was very serious about it.
Yeah.
He had a legitimate concern, a legitimate question.
Mm-hmm.
He felt that he was due a certain process. At least that's the way it appeared. I have not talked to him. I don't know if you've talked to him.
I haven't spoken to him yet.
Yeah.
No.
So, but it appeared that he felt that there was a certain process that he was due. And I remember seeing when he was on the track, turning to someone that was on the track saying that he wants to run under protest. And they directed him back over to the side where he went over and mentioned it to him, and they said no, which I thought was a little bit interesting. But then this morning, I was watching an earlier broadcast of the women's 100-meter semifinal, and Otto Bolden made mention that was not afforded anymore. You couldn't run under protest.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that's a new rule change. I don't know if that's specific to a rule specific to reaction times. I'm not sure what that is, but it sounds like that's not an option, and that's a shame.
Right.
I guess I can see. I guess for television, they wouldn't want to have a race finish and not know who the winner is.
Mm-hmm.
But yet there's got to be a due process. There's got to be a way to be able to work through this fairly and equitably for everybody.
Right.
Maybe lowering the number is the answer.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It definitely raises the question, like, is this just a ruling for world championships? Is this just a ruling for reaction time? There's also a ruling in the technical guidelines for world athletics that says if the machine that they use is like a World Athletics certified stat system, if that system is in play, then the athlete cannot run under protest. Literally, it says they cannot. But if the official or the technical delegate deems that if there's any doubt or if there's any discrepancy, the official delegate, the technical delegate can decide, we're going to let this happen. We're going to let them run under protest or whatever. So it's interesting. I don't know, like,
I would imagine that they would have, imagine they would have everything in play for World Championship, right?
Right. Yeah. And these rules that I looked up, they were I don't know if they're reinstated. They were adjusted as of March 2022. So they aren't like old rules, they reviewed these recently and put them out a few months ago. So like, it's something that they looked at, decided. And I remember because I was trying to look up more information about Danielle Williams from Jamaica. She went to Jamaican trials in 2019 and she false started. Remember that happened?
Yeah, I do. Yep.
And I was trying to look up what happened, like if there was a specific time that she ran. I couldn't find anything on it, but I wonder if it was kind of similar to the same thing, because there was also a quote in an article that I read that those officials were also saying if we were to allow her to run under protest, we would be in violation of our guidelines. So like, kind of sounds like it was the same thing, but it's just interesting to think about,
I have another question, and I don't know the answer to this. I'm not sure, what supersedes what. They called Devon for a false start because he reacted faster than the allowable time. And I don't like the phrase false start, because technically, under the guidelines, he started faster than what he's allowed to, but it wasn't like he started before the gun.
Right.
He was literally, less than 1,000th of a second faster than what he's allowed to be. When I viewed the video from the side, and there's several posts of this on Twitter, it shows Devon rising into the set position, shows Grant in the background rising to the set position. Grant, and I love Grant, I'm not saying anything bad about Grant. Grant's set position is way slower than Devon's. Grant slowly comes into a set position. When he hits his set position, his hips dropped back down and settled into it, like David does and some of our other guys.
Mm-hmm.
Grant never was fully stopped in a set position when the gun went off, which that's a starter problem. We're supposed to wait for everyone to be at a complete stop, and then the gun goes. Then there was another clip where it shows from behind on the opposite side of the track, looking down at the blocks, and it shows Grant's back foot off the pedal while Devon's foot is still on the pedal, which is interesting, right?
That is interesting.
If you've got someone that has a false start, how is he not leaving the pedals before everybody else?
That is very interesting. And it kind of beckons to the question, where are these sensors that are picking up reaction at? Like where do you, like what picks it up? I don't know if it's a laser light. I don't know if it's the actual pressure pedals that are on the blocks. Like, I don't know, like that just.
Assuming they were in the pads, you've run on them.
Yeah. But even if you're on them, like you can kind of see a wire attached, like you don't know exactly what's most sensitive, what's least sensitive. Like you don't know. You're just like, oh, it's attached to a speaker and a wire. You know, like I don't know. So yeah.
Well, I think the other thing that was interesting is that traditionally it's been a very fast gun the whole meet.
Yeah.
You know, we've had like U.S. championships. They were really long holds.
Yeah.
Really long holds. This has been a really quick gun. I don't know if that has a thing, if it plays a role in this or not, but whole thing seems interesting to me. It's like, you know, could Devon under the rules protest that Grant was still moving and he was drawn out by Grant still moving, and would video support that? I don't know. I'm just devil's advocate.
Yeah, and I've personally sensed Grant do this too. Like 2019 USA's, my first time being right next to Grant since college. You know, and he does that. He'll get up into the set position and then slowly come down. And I thought for sure when he did that they shot the gun. And I thought when he did that they were gonna call it back. And I look up and I came out of the blocks 0.234. You know. Yeah. And I'm like, they're definitely going to call this back. They don't call it back. And I'm just like, what in the world?
And I'm not faulting Grant at all. Dude, I gotta say this again.
But it's something
I love Grant. I think he's amazing. Huge fan.
Yeah.
Just really, really like the guy.
I think so. Yeah. I definitely don't want to throw shade. Like we want to congratulate Grant Holloway on his defending his title, and we want to congratulate
100%
Trey Cunningham for getting his civil.
100%. Super well deserved.
But when we're thinking about the grand scheme of the sport, like what is really better for it? You know, like when we think about this reaction time, and what was better for the sport? For Devon to get disqualified for crossing the barrier, or what's better for the sport when, you know, athletes are starting to have the capacity to break that limit, you know, and moving forward, what would be better if we keep it the same and still have that black and white line of you can't run faster than 0.100, or are athletes getting to a point where that threshold isn't accurate? And when we think about it, so the reason they came up with the 0.100 threshold, there was a study done by Komi Ishikawa and Salmi on the IAAF page. They talked about how this experiment that they did in 2009, they took 7 Finnish sprinters from Finland, and they had them do a series of reaction tests. I don't know exactly what it was because the article doesn't talk about that, but they took their reaction and they, based on their information that they got from those 7 Finnish athletes, they concluded that this is the human ceiling limit for reacting to a gun, reacting to a sound. And anything under this was either anticipated or like trying to catch a flyer. And that's what I have an issue with, you know, like, and I think that information can be dated because it's from 13 years ago. I think it can be skewed because the sample size is from one country of a very specific target group of sprinters in Finland. And I don't think they can be completely connected to the sprinters of our day and age right now, you know. And I think it should be changed. I think there should be a little bit more accommodations made for sprinters who can possibly break through that threshold, you know. And I think Devon sparked the conversation of, oh shoot, can someone really react to a gun faster than what we thought possible, you know? Yeah. And I think that's an important thing to think about, and that's an important thing to talk about moving forward in our sport, you know? So yeah.
I agree. And like you and I had mentioned earlier, I do think that we need a line in the sand. Like there's got to be a number. There's got to be a hard number. Right now, that hard number is 0.1. We have to be able to define it somehow. I do think that if that number is so close to what we're capable of doing without really knowing it, that there's some gray area, could be one way or the other, then we need to re-examine what the actual number is.
Right.
What's the intent? Like, the intent is to have a fair and equitable start for everybody. You know, is the intent to just penalize those that are better than others? Like, I don't think that that's what they're trying to go after, but didn't you say something about in that study, they were showing that there were athletes that were doing 0.08
Yes, yeah. I think they were saying
or point
let me actually pull it up before I start
Yeah.
spewing something that ain't even right.
98 or something.
So the authors found great variation in individual reaction times and confirmed previous reports of simple auditory reactions as fast as 80 meters. I keep saying meters a second. 80 milliseconds.
Yeah.
They recommended that the 100 millisecond limit be lowered to 80 or 85, and that the IAAF urgently examines possibilities for detecting false starts kinematically, so that judges' decisions are based on the first visible movement, regardless of the body part. So there were some instances where they reacted as fast as 80 milliseconds.
So I guess that's my biggest question. So if that's a hard number based on their own study, if that's a hard number, then why did we choose 100 milliseconds as opposed to 80? Like, if people are capable of it, then you're disqualifying people not for doing anything illegal, just for having a great effort. Like, that doesn't make sense to me.
I can see it being something like if you're really trying to catch a flyer,
Yeah.
you can try, if you know the gunner, if you go into a meet that you always go to and they always have the same gunner, if you know their cadence or whatever,
Sure.
you can probably catch a flyer and pull off a 0.85, 0.90, you know.
Right.
But I think that's where it presents the issue, because if you know the factors involved and you try to catch a flyer and that's accepted, then you can break a world record. You can do something crazy based on, like, and most people go to the same meets. Like, I've been to some of the same meets throughout my career. I've been to Rovereto 4 times. I've been to London Diamond League a couple of times. You know, like, if you go to the same meets within your country or within your circle of meets that your agent has you go to, you can possibly try to predict that. I think it's very, very low chance, but like.
Yeah, I mean, I think people try and guess it all the time.
Yeah.
Right. Usually you're slower when you do that because you're guessing.
Yeah.
You know, and you don't want to jump.
Yeah.
Reacting still, in my opinion, still the fastest way to do it.
Yeah.
But I struggle with if it's possible for us to go at 80 milliseconds, then why is our number at 100?
Why is our, yeah. That's an interesting question. I
struggle with that.
So do you think this rule should be changed, altered, fixed? In my opinion, I think it should be changed. I think it should be. I think when you have an athlete who can consistently run very, very close to that limit, I think the chance of them obviously breaking that limit and running under that is very high. And Devon Allen is one of those athletes, you know. And I think
I agree with that.
I think it should be changed to accommodate an athlete like him, for sure.
Yeah, and I think at a minimum, we need to explore it more to see the frequency of this, to see if there's more. I can't believe there aren't other examples of some 99s and 98s out there.
Right.
At a minimum, I think it needs to be re-examined.
Right.
I think at the same time, we have to decide what's the ultimate goal, and the ultimate goal is to create a fair playing field for everybody. And no one, certainly not television, wants to see an empty lane.
Oh, that's a whole nother conversation that we can.
So
that's a whole nother.
So, you know, I think the biggest complaint coaches and athletes have with officials in general, and I'm not saying that this crew is like that. I'm not saying I still want to call them IAAF, that World Athletics is like that. I'm not accusing anybody of being anything, but I think in general, our complaint from coaches and athletes' point of view is that officials tend to view themselves as being bigger than the competition. And they're really adamant about enforcing something just to enforce it. And oftentimes it has no bearing on the event whatsoever. A silly example would be a high school rule where they're doing a uniform rule enforcement. It's like the jersey didn't match the other relay jersey, so they disqualified the relay. It's like, was there a competitive advantage gained? They're not bigger than the event. And I'm not accusing these officials of being that way. But I do think at times we get lost in the rules of what we're trying to do as opposed to what our goals are. And I think we lose track of what we're trying to accomplish as a sport, as an entity, and what our desired outcome would be. And that's a shame. I think we do need to kind of get back and decide what we're trying to do to better our sport, to put a great product out there, to make it a great viewing or a great spectator event. And I don't think we do a great job at that at times.
Right, and I agree 100%, 100%. I feel like the powers that be should constantly be doing things to accommodate new types of athletes, new level of athletes, new performances. Like there should always be a consistent effort to accommodate, and sometimes I feel like that's not the case, Yeah,
and I get it. I mean, I think those on the other side of the fence are going to say, look, but if we don't have all these measures in place, then our world records are in jeopardy. What we cherish so highly now have a plus or minus variance, and then they're no longer really legitimate world records. I get that. And where do you draw the line?
Right.
I get that. I'm good with that too.
I get that too, yeah.
So, but it has to be, in my opinion, it has to be fair and equitable, has to be a process. I don't see the harm, other than it doesn't maybe make for great television, in letting someone like Devon, the athlete, run the race, so we can sort this out at the end to see if there is other reasons, something that caused it, or they're wrong, or now he just doesn't have a chance to run.
Right, and the world will never know
under that circumstance. But I get that we have to have a line in the sand, so it's tough, that's a tough one.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I don't have the answers either, and I'm not even going to pretend like I do. I just know it that would have been a moment for the history books, and as an athlete, like, you look forward to that,
Yeah.
And to have that taken away is something that
he handled himself remarkably well.
100%.
And so did the other athletes.
Yeah, they did.
They were good about it.
They did as well.
Yeah, I thought everyone was really good. I think the officials handled it really well. Everybody seemed to be very polite and tried to give him the answers that he was looking for at the time. I can't really fault anybody other than the process.
Right, the process. I would feel a lot better knowing, like, at first, and my friend Amadou asked me this. He was like, what did he say? He asked me, because before this, I didn't have any issues with the system. I thought it was valid. I thought it was okay. I thought it was like, yeah, whatever. But like, now that it's happened in this moment, I find that it just sparked my interest. And upon looking into it, I'm like, oh, this was determined from a study in 2009, and it was a very skewed sample size. And I'm just like, well, like, I would feel a lot better if this was something that was tested more recently, and I wouldn't want to target it so much, And I'd be like, okay, this is something that they check all the time. Like, it's just messed up, But
I think the other thing that's interesting, and you brought this up earlier today, is reaction time something that you can train, or is it natural ability?
Yeah.
If it's something that you can train and enhance and get better at,
right,
then
like I said, like, is the limit that they found, is it absolute? This is the threshold, and that's how it's going to be for all of eternity. I think that's a very bold claim, and I think for the rest of our existence, humans are going to be evolving, in some way, in some shape, physically, mentally, and all those things. So
I mean, through sheer repetition alone, in theory, if it's something that you can train and improve, you're going to get better.
Yeah.
Right.
100%.
Some days you're going to react better than others, depending on sleep, excitement level, hydration levels. Like, everything's going to have an effect on it. So some days you're going to be better than other days. It seems like it's something that should be explored more.
Right.
World athletics, it's hard to say that they will.
Yeah. But we can conclude that. We can just say, this is frustrating. This is something that could be, that should be explored, so that it can appease the minds of those like me who think this ruling, this standard, this technical clause should be updated, should be fixed, because we're not the same athletes we were when this was decided,
Right. Well, at the very minimum, there's a lot of people asking the question right now.
Yeah, exactly. And if they can answer that, so be it.
Yeah,
like
right.
you're the powers that you are the powers in charge, and that you made the decision. On a side note, I saw a post about this guy was just like, how about we just put a gate in the race?
I saw that.
You're worried about reaction. What do you think about that idea?
I think he referenced like skiing.
Yeah, skiing. He said skiing and horses. Skiers and horses.
You go too early, you just slam into the gate and it holds you up. I think that's interesting. I think that would be a pretty difficult one to implement.
I think it's nonsensical. It ain't first off, that doesn't help our reaction false start issue in the slightest. It doesn't help us at all. Because people can still false start and get a benefit and win the race. Because it's not about time so much, right? It's about who can cross that finish line first.
And athletes get hurt. And
I don't know. Yeah.
You got a multi-million-dollar contract and you're slamming.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I'm sure Nike would be happy about seeing their, newly appointed next greatest crash into a gate after a false start. Or how about if we have something that grabs a hold of your foot, and if you false start too early,
and you just end up on your face? Yeah, right. Oh, we know he false started. Yep, he's out. Right. He can't even run no more. Well, shoot, Tim, I think this was a great conversation. I think it answered a lot of questions that people have had, and it gets the conversation rolling again. This is literally what we came to do. It's something that's been on my mind literally since it happened, and I'm hoping this can open some eyes, turn some heads, and bring some attention to something that could possibly be changed. I don't know if it could. I don't know if it can't, but hopefully this will help push us forward. Hopefully it will push the sport forward even more. So that's all we got talking about false starts, reactions. We appreciate you guys for checking in, tuning in with Float the Backstretch. Thank you, Tim, for tuning in and shedding a little bit of light on track and field, on hurdles, on everything you know about sprinting and everything. So
thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Of course. This ain't the last one. I'll let you know that.
Well, we'll see. I got an agent now.
Okay, yeah, all right. That's all we got. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch y'all next time. Peace.